Michael, what's so new about the new atheism?
The new in the new atheism is really the social political nature of it. That it's a movement to try to say, look, there's a lot more of us out there than you think. You're not alone, and that it's not okay to say that we're not as moral as you, or that we're not good citizens, or that we can't lead fulfilling lives. Stop saying that. So basically, it's a consciousness raising, civil liberties kind of movement.
Standing up for your rights.
That's right. The
last persecuted minority.
We are. You can be a black, gay, woman, Muslim president before an atheist would get elected as a white male.
Right.
That's how bad it is.
Right.
And you hear it in the rhetoric. People think nothing of saying things like, atheists are not as moral. Would you say a Jew is not immoral or a black? No, you would never say things like this, right? So really that's the main thing, is that there's a lot of us out there.
Yeah. How about the arguments themselves? The arguments for atheism or against theism, God doesn't exist. How have they changed? Is that part of the new atheism movement?
The main part about the arguments in the new atheism movement is that they've just become more refined, more bullet pointed, with updated examples. Almost everything you find in the new atheist books, including my own books, it really goes all the way back to David Hume. Hume really nailed it on almost every argument for God's existence. He just came back and said, well, no, wait, and deconstructed it that way. But of course, that's in 18th century, paragraph long sentences. And okay, so one of the things that the new atheists have done is to really make it bullet pointed arguments. If somebody says this, you are to say that. And I'll just give you an example. So you say, well, I believe in God. Okay, which one? So it's like, well, no, the monotheistic God. Yeah, okay. So, well, do you believe in Zeus? No. Or Quetzalcoatl? No. Apollo? No. So you're an atheist.
About those gods.
You're an atheist about all those gods. Some of us just go one God further. Okay, these are like, you hear these repeated in the mantras. And well, you can't be moral without God. Sure you can. Is there anything you would do as a believer that I couldn't do as a non-believer? Of course not. Is there any evidence that religious people are more moral than non-religious people? Not a shred of evidence. And and then you come back with arguments about people that are religious that are just as sinful and so on. So that's really the main thing. Packaging it into bite-sized counter arguments to say, if you say we're like this, no, we're not. Here's the argument. You say, I think there's a God because of this. No, here's a counter argument.
How about dealing with in areas whether it's biological arguments or cosmological arguments or philosophical arguments? Does the new atheism have any different concentration than it might have had 50 years ago?
Well, I guess the best new arguments have countered the evolving theological arguments, which had to do with more of the fine-tuning of the physical and biological world simply because of new discoveries in science. Mm-hmm. So the way it works is that the believers chase the scientists and look through papers and books and go, okay, oh, wow, look at that discovery. That must be where God operated. How do you explain that one without a God? Right. And then the scientists come in and go, well, actually, this could have happened. All right, well, then in that case, let's look for another one. Right? So as the science evolves, the theology evolves after it and taps into it, and then the atheists have to come around and go, okay, actually, we have an argument to that. Right. And that's where the change happens.
I see. So the science comes first, the atheists, the theists use those arguments to enhance their position, and then the atheists have to come back. The scientists just were doing science. They weren't doing philosophy or religion. Right. They didn't care. But the theists used it, the atheists came back and have to counter that.
That's right.
And so that's how the process goes, wherever it leads.
It's a typical culture wars thing. Yeah. We're just in the middle of it.
Right. And so how are you progressing?
Well, I think we're doing great. The fastest growing...
Sounds like a political movement.
It is. Well, it is in a way.
Social awareness.
Well, the internet, of course, has made it possible for us to reach out. So there are meetup groups. There's Atheists in the Pub. There's these Facebook groups that get together. When I do book tours and lecture tours, all I have to do is tweet or Facebook, hey, Birmingham Skeptics, I'm coming next Friday. And they show up in droves. And it's like, it happens like that. Mm-hmm. And what they're after is not just the new intellectual arguments that they can use. That's part of it. But then let's go out and have a beer afterwards. This is equally important. We are a social group. We like hanging out with each other, just like religious people do. We like to be with our own kind.
Does this make you nervous about a fragmentation of society? Because I've had the sense that that's what the internet does. The internet was supposed to give everybody access to everything and be more, and therefore bring everybody together. But what it seems to be doing is more concentrating people in their own belief systems and bringing people apart and making groups more coherent within themselves, but separating the groups between each other.
It might have the effect of balkanizing culture even more, but I think it cuts both ways. I think every argument you can make for how the internet balkanizes us, I think you can say, yeah, but it also brings us together over here. I think it's always a trade-off with any new technology.
And as you have these groups and the atheists are getting together, can you distinguish the sociology of it from religious groups?
Well, first of all, the sociology is very amusing because, like all social movements, they go through these fragmentations and arguments about who's the real atheist here. I mean, are you a real atheist or are you one of those wimpy agnostics,
Right.
And it's like, oh, come on. I mean, it's like, who is a true feminist, right? Who's a true Marxist? Now, who's a true atheist,
Well, that's funny. So where are you classified?
Well, I'm an atheist. I'm a Huxleyan agnostic, that it isn't possible to know if there's a God or not in any ultimate scientific sense. Okay, but setting that aside, what do I actually believe? I believe there's very likely no God at all.
And where does that put your status in atheistic society?
Oh, I am below the hardcore, militant Hitchens-Dawkins level. In fact, I remember, I don't know, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a big atheist conference, and the organizer had invited me to speak and give one of the keynote addresses. But his board said, "Oh, I don't know if we should have Shermer speak. I mean, he's not really hardcore atheist." And it's like, there aren't that many of us out there, guys, to be like, deciding who gets to come in the club room.
Did you look upon that as a criticism or a compliment?
I thought it was disturbing in a sense of like, hey, we need a big tent. We pale face are very few amongst all the believers. We need to stick together. So I found it a little disturbing. Yeah.
And so what would they have you do differently? What should you say that would bring you up into the top tier?
Well, for the more extreme atheists, they want the leaders to be more aggressive, more militant, go after the believers. It's a strategy argument. It's a marketing argument. One way to cause social change is to make a belief seem not just wrong, but stupid, ignorant. I mean, just silly. Like how the Ku Klux Klan became a laughing stock. Right. So that it's not just that it's wrong, but it's embarrassing to be associated with them. They're laughed at. So some atheists think we should treat all believers like we just make fun of them. You got to be a complete moron to believe this. What kind of a pinhead are you? I mean, come on, a visible man in the sky. Right. So if you take that rhetoric, then that elevates you into the level of hardcore militant. That's just not my style.
And it's not your style, but it is your belief.
Well, it's certainly not my style. I don't like doing that. I'm uncomfortable making people feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I don't mind arguing with them technically, saying, I understand why you believe that, but let me just give you why I think it's not right. Okay, that's one thing. But it's another thing to say, I think you're a moron or something like that. I don't see any necessity to do that, even though I might think that they're wrong. In the same way I might try to talk a liberal out of this belief or a conservative out of that belief. I don't think it serves a useful purpose to elevate it to the wall goes up the moment you make fun of somebody's belief.
Yeah, so it's a technique on your part. It's not as well as a personal feeling.
Yeah, that's right. Technique, and it's just how I am.
So what's your prediction for the new atheist movement as a political movement?
Well, I think by say 2050 or so, after gay marriage is, we get through that, and we'll look back on gay marriage like we look back on the drinking fountains of the black and white drinking fountains. And I think the atheists will be there a couple of decades after the gays.
A couple of decades?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, optimistically, I like to think in 5 years. But on the gay marriage, I've been saying we're 5 years away for about 20 years now. So I'm thinking, you know what, maybe some political change doesn't happen.
Prediction for the first American atheistic president? What's your year?
2100. We got a ways to go.